Hey engineers, so I'm going to be walking you through how to create your windmill for today's seams investigation. And our windmill is going to resemble this pinwheel because it's going to spin using our breath. So to create your windmill today, or your DIY pinwheel, you're going to need a windmill template. You can either print out one just like I have here, or if you don't have that, you can look at the picture of this that I posted and just trace it over onto any blank piece of paper that you have. An 8.5 by 11 or just a regular piece of copy paper is gonna work best. So you'll need that. You'll need something to write with, like a pencil. You'll need a single hole punch or a regular hole punch if you only have a 3-1 as well. You'll need some scissors, and you will need a straw to put your pinwheel on. So those are the materials you'll need for the first part we're gonna work on today. So the first thing I'm going to do, since I already have my windmill template traced out, is I'm going to cut it out. And I'm only going to cut on the straight lines, not the dotted lines, and not the holes. So I'm gonna start by cutting just the outside of it first to make that nice size square. And now, I'm gonna move my trash pieces out of the way. So now that I have my square, I'm gonna go in and cut along these straight lines, not the dotted lines. That's where we're gonna fold, so I don't want any cuts marks there. I only wanna cut these dotted lines here. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut along my straight lines, making sure that I don't cut all the way across, or I'm gonna end up with triangles and not a pinwheel. All right, so once you do that, you'll see it almost looks like you have flaps, and it's your square cut up into little triangles. Now, I need to go ahead and create some holes where my pinwheel will go onto the straw. So anywhere you see one of these circles is where you're going to use a hole punch. And if you don't have a hole punch at home, you can also very carefully just poke a hole with a pencil that you have available. Anything to just make a little hole big enough for that straw to go through. All right, so I have one on each blade of my windmill. And now, let's see, this middle one's a little tricky. I think I'm gonna use a pencil for this middle one. All right, so I've got my handy dandy writing utensil, and I'm just gonna poke a hole right through the middle of the pinwheel. Again, being careful to not separate it into pieces. All right, next, I have my cut pinwheel with holes in it. My straw, it's time to start assembling my windmill. So I'm gonna take my straw and feed it through the hole right in the middle of my pinwheel. Again, being really careful to try and not rip it into separate pieces. And if that happens, just use a little bit of tape. It's always good to have some on hand, just in case, you never know. So now that I have my straw through the center, I'm going to fold each of my blades along the dotted line and add them onto the straw as well. So I'm gonna fold on the dotted line there. And now that I have this hole closer to the straw, I'm gonna go ahead and poke that through. There we go. So I have one blade of my windmill, and I'm just gonna keep doing that all the way around. I'm gonna fold. I'm using a kind of fat straw today, so I had to make my holes a little bit bigger. Just kind of tearing gently as I go to get it to fit. It also helps to keep your windmill towards the end of your straw because your blades aren't too huge, so that you want to make sure that they reach as you're folding. All right, last one. Windmill blade number 4 onto the edge of my straw, like so. And so now I have my pinwheel. Now that I've got my pinwheel built, I want to make sure that it stays in one place before I test it. So I've got 2 rubber bands here, 1 for each side of my pinwheel. And I'm going to go ahead and just wrap them around the straw on each end. So you can see I have pretty large rubber bands, so I'm going to wrap it quite a few times until it doesn't need to be super, super tight on there. I just don't want any big loops kind of hanging off. So I'm going to loop it around one side, and then I'm just going to slide it over until it's just right next to the blades of my windmill here. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So I'm going to wrap my rubber band around the end of my straw, and then just slide it down until it's just about touching. I just made this one a little tight. Just about touching my windmill. So now it's going to hold that in place no matter what happens. It's not going to slide off even if it gets really, really windy wherever I am testing this. So as you're doing this, you'll notice if yours is like mine, the center or the tower part of your windmill spins at the same time as the blades do. So as I'm holding it, I just want to be really careful not to squeeze really, really hard. I'm just kind of letting it hang in my hands and letting it blow. So that's step 1 of creating your prototype windmill.